If you're ever in Ireland, head down the M7 from Dublin to Limerick, and about 2/3 of the way to your destination, you'll come across this. This is Barack Obama Plaza, a totally unique shrine to the 44th US president, complete with a life-size statue of him and Michelle, a glorious little museum, and walls plastered with pictures of the man himself, Barack Obama. What, you might wonder, is this doing here? Well, it turns out, while everyone was getting a bit intense about Obama's Kenyan heritage, they forgot to notice that his family on his mother's side came from Ireland. From this bit of Ireland, in fact. It was around 1850 when Obama's great-great-great-grandfather, a man named Falmouth Kearney, upped sticks from Moneygall. He was a shoemaker, but he had big dreams, namely of being a shoemaker somewhere with more to eat. At the time, the Irish potato famine was in full swing. With crops blighted by disease, food was increasingly scarce, and millions of people chose to emigrate rather than, well, die. And so, emigrate Falmouth did, winding up in the US of A, where he married and had a daughter who had a son, who had a son, who had a daughter, who had a son, who went on to become President of the United States. It was around 2007 when Obama's Irish heritage came to light, thanks to, not even kidding, Ancestry.com. Obama was on the campaign trail at that point in time, and he seized on this little nugget with glee. It was a great story, played well with Irish Americans, and was kind of funny in a way. Realising that someone in line to be the most powerful person in the world had a skinny, pale, 8th cousin hanging out in a village in rural Ireland. If that was a surprise for Obama, it was definitely a surprise for that 8th cousin himself, Henry Healy, nicknamed, inevitably, Henry VIII. Henry had lived in Moneygall all his life, and for almost none of that had he been internationally famous. But suddenly, everyone and their dog wanted to interview him, and Henry was more than happy to comply. Of course, Obama won the 2008 election, and a few years later, a presidential visit was on the cards. In May 2011, the man himself arrived in Ireland, and it's safe to say that people were pretty excited to see him. He touched down in Dublin Airport, nipped over to Phoenix Park to plant a tree and meet his Irish counterpart, and then hopped back on his helicopter again. Around 11:30, that same presidential helicopter touched down in a slightly damp field outside of Moneygall. This was, by the way, about the biggest thing ever to happen to this teeny tiny little village. They'd spent years sprucing up the place in anticipation of Obama's visit. And on the day itself, around 2,000 people were issued official tickets to hang out on the main street, in addition to the village's 300 actual residents. People had made merch. They'd written songs. O'Leary, O'Reilly, O'Hare and O'Hara. There's no one as Irish as Barack Obama. Into this fevered atmosphere of excitement waltzed Obama himself. He met Henry VIII. Look, here they are together. They've got the same ears. Saw the site where his great-great-great-grandfather had once made shoes, bought a keyring from the souvenir shop, nipped into the pub for a pint of Guinness, paid his tab with a €50 note, and was gone again in 90 minutes, heading back to Dublin where he'd make the announcement, "My name is Barack Obama of the Moneygall Obamas. I've come home to find the apostrophe that we lost somewhere along the way." Brief as his visit was, it left behind a legacy that would last a lifetime. Moneygall residents loved Obama. And you have to admit, he was a charismatic guy. Everyone who met him or spoke to him had only a glowing review to give. Indeed, it seems like the residents loved the visit so much that there was only one thing they could do: build a permanent shrine to commemorate the occasion, in the form of a 26-pump petrol station and museum. The project was paid for by Patrick McDonagh, the millionaire owner of a uniquely Irish brand of fast food retailers, Supermac. He put down around €7 million to construct this glorious edifice in 2014, and not a single euro of that was wasted, let me tell you. The plaza is something really quite special. It's a few years old now, but it still looks brand new, like it was built just yesterday. It gleams. And it's massive too. Not only are there the usual things you might expect to find at a service station alongside a motorway, but there's also the museum. 5 meeting rooms, a massive car park big enough for the coaches of tourists who are routinely dropped off here, and a big garden out front with a statue of the Obamas waving at passing traffic. It's the kind of thing that feels like it belongs on the side of Route 66 in America. But here it is, transplanted to rural Ireland. And it is so incredibly worth a visit that I can't quite put it into words.
The parking bays marked bus are for bus parking only. All other vehicles parked in this area may be stickered or clamped.
It's tempting to think that it might be a joke. A lot of Americans who visit certainly seem to think so. But I reckon Barack Obama Plaza is 100% honest in its enthusiasm for the 44th president and all he stands for. His image adorns every wall. Merchandise in the gift shop bears his likeness. A bust of him occupies the place of honour in the museum, and there are these delightful cardboard cutouts of him and Michelle scattered liberally around the site. And if that's not enough for you, there's a Papa John's pizza too. Now, you may be thinking that the plaza can't coast on the Obama name forever, but don't worry, they've thought of that. At times they've considered renaming themselves with Trump's Pumps and Hillary's Fillery being 2 suggestions that I sincerely hope were meant as jokes. But management have also invested in other celebrities, specifically Conan O'Brien, who visited in 2024, ostensibly also on the trail of his ancestors. Without missing a beat, a statue of him was installed in the museum, and an air pump was ceremoniously dedicated to him. It even comes with a spray nozzle for fragrance, although I think that's new car scent rather than the personal smell of Conan O'Brien. And it doesn't stop there, because a big part of the museum is basically all about how more or less everyone is from Ireland. Martin Sheen, Walt Disney's grandpa, and even Muhammad Ali. If they treat all of their famous visitors with the same reverence as Obama, a drive down the M7 could soon become a veritable who's who of celebrities you didn't know were Irish. But if they carry it off as well as they did Barack Obama Plaza, I can't see anyone complaining. Oh hey! By the way, if you want me to cover more weird and interesting places like this, like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Okay, bye!